races on the Le Mans Series 2011 program. A championship that's kept all its promises on Europe's biggest circuits. The season debuted at Le Castellet in April on the high-tech test track, one of the most beautiful circuits in the world, with the latest safety innovations, but not the easiest to negotiate. Then it was off to Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium for a joint event with the International Le Mans Cup. The legend of the Belgian Ardennes Mountains hosts the second round of the season in early May, 1 month before the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which doesn't count for the Le Mans Series, but which welcomes a number of its participants. Again, side by side with the ILMC, which is holding its fourth event here, the Le Mans Series heads for Italy in the month of July on the fast and narrow track of Imola under the summer sun. The Autodrome Enzo Edino Ferrari becomes the center of the endurance world. Classic among classics, it's the new Silverstone circuit and its recent installations that will then become the setting for the 6 British hours under an autumn sky. It will already be the second last event of the season for the Le Mans Series and the last European race for the ILMC. The curtain finally falls on this rich and palpitating year in Portugal. After Portimao in the previous years, it's Estoril, a track that's written some of the great pages of history in Formula One and which the Le Mans Series discovered in 2011. The leading GT category in the Le Mans Series is GTE Pro. More than 500 horsepower. The most recent models of the major constructors are here. Porsche, Ferrari and Aston Martin dispute the title this year with teams of professional drivers. These cars run close to 300 kilometers per hour. And thus it was here at Le Castellet that the action began, with a muscled explanation between the Ferraris, from the outset dominating in the south of France. JMW in yellow against AF Corsa in red. They animate the first laps of the race in the GTE Pro category. Unfortunately, still too new, the 458 of Jamie Mello and Tony Villander has a number of hitches that prevent them from defending their chances right till the end. The show on the track's constant, with this three-way fight for victory already at midway point between car 51 of AF Corsa, number 89 of Farnbacher, and the JMW car. But in endurance, not only speed counts, you also have to count on the fortunes and tactics of the race. And at this game, it's Robert Bell and James Walker who impress everyone, slipping onto the top step of the podium, just a whisker ahead of the Italians. The trend is young this springtime, and JMW are great at resisting the assaults of Fisichella and Bruni, who already see their names in lights. The duel is superb. But the efforts of the Italians are not enough to unseat the Brits, who after 6 hours racing win the first round of the Le Mans Series 2011 in GTE Pro. And it's a triple header on the podium as Team Farnbacher Hankook completes the triumph of the 458 Italians, dominant from their very first moments on the track. The winning drivers thus, of course, find themselves at the top of the championship table as the season begins. This also gives a nice advantage to Ferrari in the battle for the constructors' title that'll be fought over the coming months. At Spa-Francorchamps, things are again off to a bad start for the Porsches, of which the most valiant, that of Richard Lietz and Mark Lieb, runs into trouble right from the start. From one of the Peugeot 908s, we come to understand that in fact car number 77 is a collateral victim to a tangle in the pack. It appears they're victim to a puncture caused by the contact. The Italians find themselves again in combat for the top places, and the battle's raging between Mello and Villander on the one hand, and Bell and Walker on the other, and no one gives in at the approach to the famous Raidillon, where the two 458s are neck and neck. The two cars play cat and mouse for long minutes, with the advantage changing hands at almost every corner. AF Corsa or JMW. This little mistake could have been paid dearly by the British driver, but his return to the track is managed in masterly form without too much harm done, and the tussle can begin again in vain. The toughest thing for the team of car 66 is to find themselves in a confrontation lap after lap with the two cars of AF Corsa. Which will wind up going to the benefit of JMW due to a technical problem. The cooling system of the yellow Ferrari is far from being optimal, and this will be fatal to the team's chances. There's an alert on the track as well for Mello and Villander, decidedly unlucky, who are caught up in a tangle with the Corvette number 50 of Lauber competition. A little off-road running, and it's all over, so they say, but not at all. The Ferrari is damaged and wipes off a new deception. So what's left? Well, a very regular AF Corsa 458, which has kept itself away from trouble, in the hands of the experts Gianmaria Bruni and Giancarlo Fisichella. And it's the former Formula One Team Ferrari driver who makes it across the line as winner, under the eyes of a very, very happy team. Once again at Spa-Francorchamps, the podium is 100% Ferrari. Thus, the cards are dealt in the drivers' classification for the two Italian drivers, even if for the moment none of the top teams are taking a veritable advantage. AF Corsa leads the team classification, and Ferrari prances in the lead of the constructors' table in GTE Pro, with all points from the first two podiums of the season. Decidedly, this season is complicated for the Porsche teams, who are waiting for an update of the 911 RSR and who are again dealt a bad hand at Imola 2 months later. Luckily, Mark Lieb and Richard Leitz manage royally in limiting the collateral damage and find themselves nevertheless in the end in battle for a place in the points. Yet again, AF Corsa and JMW are battling for the top places, and the yellow car of Bell and Walker is sandwiched between those of Bruni and Villander, under the eye of a Fisichella well decided to take the prize on home ground. And once again, the market for the summit of the hierarchy is highly volatile, and the spate of late breaking makes life more interesting for everyone. It seems that this time, the rising value is the car number 51 and its Italian team. For the moment, everything goes without a hitch for Ferrari. 2 hours racing remain to confirm the bullish trend for Bruni and Fisichella, a kind of sure value in these difficult times. While the Cavallino's already a stallion, it looks like these two are little by little wearing in the potential champion saddle. For the first time this season, the race runs without a hitch, especially for Jamie Mello and Tony Villander, who finally complete the triumph of AF Corsa, who succeed in an exceptional double-header on this emblematic circuit. All that remains now is to know in what order. More regular and already very well placed in the championship, Fisichella and Bruni will have to content themselves with second place, and the points that will be gained will give them some space at the head of the championship. Shunning the bad spell that's been on them since the start of the season, Mello and Villander offer themselves their first victory of the season aboard their Ferrari 458 Italia. Spared of their technical bugbears, they run a perfect race. A podium completed by the JMW Ferrari, meaning again 3 Italian cars in the top 3 places, and at Imola, that's worth celebrating. In the drivers' table, it's Fisichella and Bruni who take a distinct lead. While for the constructors, Ferrari leaves no doubt as to the fact that they'll take the title this season. At Silverstone, it seems the major trend will not be upset. Ferrari dominates the season, but in the pack of the IMLC, the teams of the Le Mans Series make up a good share. Not content to simply fight for the victory of their championship, they battle with the other constructors for the overall prize on British soil. And after the tumult of the start, where the pack of some 50 cars on the track occasionally has trouble finding enough space, those who emerge from the pack are again the AF Corsa boys. The good news is the return to form in this early part of the race of the Felbermayr Porsche Proto of Richard Lietz and Mark Lieb, who are in the immediate wake of the leading Ferrari. They've been working hard on bringing the Porsche back up to pace, and the work has paid off. At the same time as the constructor has announced its return to the top category of endurance racing, they bring the 911 RSR back as a formidable weapon in the hands of experts in the Austro-Germanic duo of Mark Lieb and Richard Lietz, who can reasonably pretend to the podium. Porsche in good shape in these early stages, and the trend is also confirmed by the very good place of Mark Goossens and Marco Holzer in the cousin from Pro Speed competition. They're currently running third in the general classification. 2 Porsches on the virtual podium, but not yet able to stay up with the leaders, potential champions of the Le Mans Series 2011, with a well-packed hunting list in a short season. Errors are not allowed, and Fisichella and Bruni are not making any. The team of the number 51 Ferrari will not be bothered in the slightest to take their first common crown in endurance racing, offering a title to Ferrari and the AF Corse team, who in just a few seasons has risen to becoming a reference in the field of endurance GT. Fisico and Bruni confirm the good foundation of their being placed at the wheel of the Ferrari 458. They're crowned LMS 2011 champions before the end of the season, just like Ferrari on the constructors' table. Decidedly, at the end of these 6 hours, Giancarlo Fisichella has good reason to be proud of his reconversion.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic season. I have to say thanks to Jimmy because he's a fantastic driver. He's the master of the GT category, and I learned a lot from him. And now together we are working very well. We won the championship already today. We nearly won every races, and we're looking forward for the next few races. Great, the team did a fantastic job. Ferrari too did a fantastic job with the new car. We are really happy.
Luckily, because at Estoril for the final round of the Le Mans Series 2011, luck plays against the newly crowned champions. On board the Felbermayr Porsche in the back of the GTE Pros, one can't notice that car number 51 has headed for the pits. The car is brand new because the one that ran throughout the season has been sent to the US for the ILMC. It's a small growing pain that distances the Italians from the battle for victory. It's unfortunately more serious for Pro Speed. The Porsche has suffered major damage in a collision. Porsche versus Ferrari, that's the theme of the day. Confirmation that the German carmaker has put in some major efforts this season. But for the moment, whatever the order behind, it's still Ferrari who dominate, certainly less and less clearly, but still in the leading positions. This time with the car of JMW. James Walker and Robert Bell obtain their second victory of the season after Le Castellet in the opening round. On the podium ahead of the Porsche Proto of the Felbermayr team and the IMSA Performance Matmut team, a podium that also allows the driver to install themselves at the summit of the final classification. For the constructors, this new victory confirms the hegemony of Ferrari in 2011. The GTE Am category calls upon the same kind of cars as the previous ones. With one nuance, it's the previous generation to that used in the Pro division. No Ferrari 458s here, but 430s, and the configuration of the Porsches are also of the previous kind. There are also differences behind the wheel, as each driver runs with at least one amateur driver. At the start of the first round of the year, no one has any idea about the drama that will unfold. A major pile-up at the back of the grid that will eliminate part of the GT field in just a few meters. An incongruous situation that results in material damage among the pros and also eliminates one of the main amateurs. Team Matmut recovers a badly damaged Porsche and has to leave all hope behind of doing well in this round. The door is thus left wide open for the others, who seize the occasion to put their best foot forward. Here, the Felbermayr Porsche, Junior and Reed, who already seem to be leading the dance, and who will take the victory in front of the AF Corse Ferrari number 61 of Kessel Racing and Team CRS here in hunt of the leader. An amateur podium where Porsche pips Ferrari to the contrary of the pros. And of course, being the first event, the championship standings are the same as the race results. Among the drivers, the Felbermayr boys install themselves in the lead ahead of Ferrari. And on the constructors' side, Ferrari conserves the numeric advantage and thus dominates at the end of this first round. Of course, after that first dramatic episode for the men of the IMSA Performance Matmut team, they're out for revenge. In pole almost systematically this season, Nicolas Armindo and Raymond Narak lead the dance at Spa-Francorchamps right from the first minutes. But the race is nevertheless not like a Sunday jaunt. Proof here and a warning for the French team. The consequences will be heavier for the CRS team, whose Ferrari collides with a prototype. Phil Caife, Adam Christodoulou and Klaas Hummel are also able to take back to the track, but will finish in 5th place at the end of these 6 hours. Far back, 3 laps in fact behind the winners, who throw off the spell and take their first success for the season, crossing the finish line among the winners of the general classification. It's a symbol for Armindo and Narak, who thus come back to the front of the stage and lead on the podium from AF Corse. It's a good opportunity snatched by the French team, who come back up to 2nd place in the classification, behind AF Corse, and pass with one single coup de grace with this victory ahead of Felbermayr Proton and CRS. Spa-Francorchamps, Imola. The series is launched for the team and its drivers, who enter into the conquest rhythm. Pole position of the category, leading throughout the race and also among the amateurs. A constant battle at the highest level, fighting here, for example, with the Corvette of Lauber competition, running in ILMC. In all these duels, in each phase of the race, the team dominates its adversaries. The very quick Nicolas Armindo driving with flair and intelligence, and the experienced and efficient Raymond Narak form a duo that's hard to beat. There are many a tooth broken, and in the classification of the Le Mans Series at the end of this race, the top names will be condemned to the lower ranks. The Ferrari number 82, driven by Caife, Christodoulou and Hummel, will finish 3rd. AF Corse with Perezzini, Chiocci and Lemery at the wheel is 2nd, but 2 laps behind the leaders of the class. Armindo and Narak don't content themselves to win the race in the Le Mans Series. They also dominate the ILMC cars in meetings where both events are running together. Evidently, after this 2nd victory of the season and their 3 consecutive pole positions, the lads from IMSA Matmut are over the moon and at the top of the pack. They only have 2 points lead over their main adversaries, the Ferrari drivers of AF Corse. The GTE Am field find themselves at Silverstone with a veritable wrestling match, sporting and passionate, and right in the midst of the battlefield, the Porsche number 67 running like wildfire. The leaders of the general classification can be wary. Nicolas Armindo and Raymond Narak won't give way to anyone, and even sometimes find themselves among the pros. At mid-race point, they already have a lap's lead over their main adversaries and mark yet again the maximum points at the end of this last event of the Le Mans Series season. They're moreover the only representatives on the final podium and on the highest step. Their main adversaries, those of AF Corse Ferrari number 61, finish in 5th place in GTE Am. And this time, well before the end of the 2011 season, their lead in the Drivers' Championship is now 10 points. Not really out of the woods, but with a serious option on the title. Portugal, Estoril. It's the final chance for the AF Corsa boys. Marco Chiocci, Pier Giuseppe Perezzini and Stéphane Lemeret. And in fact, it's they who'll install themselves in the lead for this closing round. The Porsche 911 of the French team is behind, and this could be enough to take the title. But the drivers have given themselves the objective of playing this race to the limit, staying concentrated and with no errors. Under the pressure of an adversary inexorably climbing back, error does hit the race leader, who, in the famous Estoril corkscrew, goes straight on and into the gravel. They'll need several minutes to be able to get out, largely sufficient to allow the champions to pass from the stage of potential to definitive, an occasion that flies out the door for AF Corsa to sign a doubleheader in GTE, but an opportunity leapt upon by IMSA Matmut to regild the Porsche coat of arms after an almost insolent domination with all their pole positions and 4 victories out of 5 races this season. On the podium, the Porsche of Team IMSA Matmut leads from the Ferrari F430 of Team CRS and the third place AF Corsa and their Italo-Belgian team. And it's with 17 points lead that the French team finishes the season as champions. Nicolas Armindo takes the crown of the Le Mans Series alongside Raymond Narak right from his first year in this speciality. Not bad for a young buck.
Bien sûr, ça donne envie de
Of course, it makes me think about my future, maybe in a different way.
J'étais pas tout seul,
But I didn't win alone. I had an outstanding team behind me, a super teammate. We worked very well together.
super sponsor qui nous donnait la
We had the chance to have good sponsors who gave us the budgets to race for winning.
Sans ça, on aurait fait
Without them, nothing would have been possible.
impossible. Donc
I'm delighted. First season, champion. I'm really satisfied and it gives me new ambitions, but we'll see later on.
satisfait. Ça donne forcément des idées, mais on verra ce qui se passera pour l'année prochaine.
LMP2 are the smaller of the endurance prototypes, small being relative, as we're nevertheless in the presence of machines capable of hitting 300 kilometers per hour, weighing 900 kilos with around 600 horsepower. You have to know how to drive to be able to exploit a car like this to the maximum of its capabilities. In this category, one of the reference teams is RML, title holders victorious at Le Mans, running with the Brazilian Tommy Erdos and the British gentleman Mike Newton, with as backup Ben Collins. In a Lola B1140, Pecom Racing represent Argentina with 2 South American drivers, Luis Perez Companc and Matias Russo. Sporting the number 40 on their flanks, the Oreca Judd of race performance runs with the Swiss drivers Michel Frey and Ralph Maestri. Stracker Racing is also a reference in the category, with the HPD Honda and their 3 drivers Nick Leventus, Johnny Kane and the ultra-fast Jason Watts. With the official support of MG, RLR is a new arrival, with the veteran Warren Hughes backed up by Barry Gates and Rob Garofal. The Extreme Limite Paris team have developed a French chassis, the Norma M200P, using a Judd engine. Chassis Oreca 03 and Nissan engine, the Boutsen Energy Racing team has taken a big step forward in LMP2 this season, with a duo of very talented drivers. The Spanish TDS Racing team uses exactly the same technical means, with here again 2 young drivers on board. Still with a Nissan engine, but using a Zytec chassis, it's the Greaves Motorsport car Karim Oj, Tom Kimber-Smith, Gary Chalandon and Olivier Lombard. LMP2 remains one of the most popular categories of endurance and the most highly disputed among the drivers. An extra event, if they need one, at Le Castellet, where the cars in the class are right up the tailpipes of the big LMP1s in the first laps. And what a show! The first 3 P2s are all neck and neck, with behind their driving wheels a new generation of drivers, including Mathias Peche, Olivier Lombard, Pierre Thirier, and Dominique Kremer, just to name a few, who we're sure to hear a lot from in the coming years. Once the rush of the start's over, the race takes its pace, and we find a confrontation for the lead between 2 British teams, Greaves and Stracker, running Japanese engines, Honda and Nissan, and an illustration of what could represent the slipstream in an overtaking maneuver. The Argentinians of Pecom Racing are well placed, permanently in the top 5 of the class, and that pays at the end. On the other hand, the first mistakes of youth are felt. It's Dominic Kremer who spends long moments in the pits. And this opens the door wide for the first victory for Greaves Motorsport. Tom Kimber-Smith, Olivier Lombard and Karim Oj mark their first major points this year, and it will be the first of a series of victories. In the classification, of course, after the first race we find a carbon copy of the race result. Greaves and his drivers thus lead the two championships, drivers and teams. At Spa-Francorchamps, while the battle for absolute victory integrates Oak Racing and here Signatec in the midst of a group of wild and woolly prototypes at the heart of the pack of ILMC, the lads running an LMS take the lion's share. And while provisionally the Zytec Nissan of Greaves and the Level 5 Lola are condemned to the role of spectators, it's just a very provisional situation. Both cars at their own pace are able to get back to the track and enter the fight that has often brought them together this season, with varied fortunes. And it's decidedly the hour of unforced errors and technical hitches, because in the same corner a little later, the Norman of Team Extreme Limit takes its turn to head into the gravel. On the other hand, a braking system problem is a possible explanation. Back to the leaders in the LMP2 race, and it's still close between the HPD of Danny Watts and the Oreca TDS of Jody Firth. But each of these cars has a different strategy, and the duel doesn't last long. Victim to a contact on the track, the Zytec Nissan of Greaves Motorsport's in trouble. But it's a lot worse for the Lola of Level 5. Christophe Bouchou totally loses the car at the entrance to the Raidillon. The damage is serious and necessitates the entrance to the track of the safety car for a number of long minutes. But in the end, there's no physical damage. At the restart, it becomes apparent that the small problems with the new Oreca chassis at the Paul Ricard track are now but a memory. In Belgium, they're putting in the best performance. The Oreca Nissan of Boots and Energy Racing is running second, around 40 seconds behind the leaders of the class. The team of Pierre Thirier, Jody Firth and Matthias Bescher has made a faultless race so far in Belgium and glides towards its first victory in LMP2. Behind them, the boys of Thierry Boutsen and Team Stracker that climbs onto the third step of the podium. A youthful podium. And given the current public enthusiasm for long-haul races, this speciality will no doubt attract new talents in the coming seasons. In the championship after two races, it's the most experienced and regular drivers of Stracker who are in the lead, but that lead is fragile. In the team's championship, it's Stracker as well, with Boots and Energy and Greaves just 3 points behind. Imola marks the entry into the second half of the 2011 LMS season. For LMP2 as for the others, just like at Spa, TDS and Boots and Energy are up the front in the early stages. But things don't always run to plan in Italy. It's very hot, the track's narrow, passing maneuvers are perilous, and the level of competition's very high. In trouble, Dominic Krahammer cuts through the pack backwards without touching anyone. Capricious brakes are the cause of this impressive figure, luckily with no harm done. It's Level 5 and their HPD that lead the dance, with Joao Barbosa at the wheel. Further back, it's still very undecided. Greaves Motorsports leading a small pack of followers. It's Karim Oj driving the Zytec Nissan. Both teams keep an eye on one another as the laps go by, each coming into the pits for refueling, driver and tyre changes according to plan. Nothing really allows either of them to take advantage, which is for the better as this adds a great deal of interest to the race. Christophe Bouchou slips behind the wheel to take back to the track. Level 5 takes the initiative and little by little digs a gap, leading the race and assuring a 15-second gap back to second. With only a couple of dozen minutes left to race, the HPD Lola of Level 5 leads from the Zytek Nissan of Greaves, and for LMS, Pecom Racing is fourth. But this great lead into the first victory of the year is cut short by a mechanical failure. It's a hard blow for the American team, to the direct benefit of Greaves Motorsport. The British team just snatches its second victory of the season in 3 races and takes an option on the 2011 title. Even if events have played in their favour, we'll see that this unhoped-for victory will simply confirm the position of Greaves Motorsport. In the drivers' classification, Karim Oj and Tom Kimber-Smith are alone in the lead because they were only joined by the young driver Olivier Lombard in this latest race. In the team classification, Greaves Motorsport has taken the initiative with 5 points lead over Stracker and 10 over Boots and Energy Racing. The second last race of the season in Silverstone is a kind of confirmation for Karim Oj, Tom Kimber-Smith, Olivier Lombard and their technical crew. They're again in the battle for first place. Their rock-solid performance on the track makes the difference, up against teams that are faster in absolute terms, but technically less reliable and less consistent in their results. Small errors and problems accumulate one by one for the competitors, while for the leaders in the first hours, the race follows its course without incident. Whether it be an excess of optimism at the wheel, technical hitches or punctures, each pays the price. TDS, Stracker, Boots and Energy, they're all slowed by one thing or another. A little more unusual, the image of the Lola MG RLR that loses its front right wheel. To recap, over the laps we witness a race by elimination, and very quickly the best teams are no longer able to play for a place of honor. This doesn't prevent the race from being superb and dotted with numerous duels, such as this one between Tommy Erdos and Dominic Krahammer. Far from all of this, Greaves Motorsport are assuring their position as leaders of the discipline, headed for a new success, the third of the season. It's an unexpected podium, because behind the Zytek number 41, we find the Orekas of Race Performance and Boots and Energy Racing. The British formation's never been in such a strong position. OJ and Kimber-Smith lead at present with 14 points gap back to Dominic Krahammer and the Stracker boys. And it's the same gap that separates Greaves Motorsport from their main followers in the teams classification. Boots and Energy have joined Stracker on the podium. Estoril starts in style for Greaves. The team and its drivers are champions already thanks to the point gain from pole position. On the track, nothing much changes during the race. There's a superb battle between the Orekas of TDS and Boots and Energy, the HPD Stracker and the Zytek, which is already champion. Fabulous on the track, Dominic Krahammer and Christian Thor Ebervist take the bull by the horns and are comfortably running in first place throughout the hours. Race Performance is again a solid third behind TDS, with Mathias Beche, Pierre Thierrier and Jody Firth. The three Orekas 03s look like assuring a royal finish for the French constructor, but the trio will be dismantled by the events of the race. There's drama in the Boutsen camp. Their car begins to catch fire in the last lap. TDS end up taking the victory ahead of Greaves and the Norma at the Extreme Limit team. In the drivers' classification, it's a triple header for the Greaves boys. Olivier Lombard second, having disputed a good half of the season ahead of the Stracker team. Greaves realized their dream ahead of time, further confirming their lead in the team standings ahead of Stracker. The TDS racing team are in third place.
C'est plus qu'un rêve, c'est extraordinaire ce qui s'est passé. J'étais en train de même.
It's more than a dream, it's extraordinary what happened this season. In the British newspapers and websites, they use the word extraordinary. And I think if they use this word in particular, it's because we did something special.
Quelque chose de spécial. Alors oui, c'est vraiment superbe. Une belle
We
course.
did a beautiful race at Le Castellet.
Bon, à Spa,
We won in Spa-Francorchamps, even if I made a small mistake. At Le Mans, it was superb. There, we only spent 15 seconds in the pits, which is incredible.
Après, à Imola, on
Then in
arrive.
Imola, we won again, thanks to level 5 having a technical problem.
Level 5. Et puis à Silverstone, bah,
And we
voilà.
won in Silverstone, thanks to our reliability and thanks to the team.
Des équipes et l'équipage.
On now to the reigning category of endurance, LMP1, and its 800 horsepower prototypes hitting over 300 kilometers per hour. These cars have powerful downforce and weigh in at only 900 kilos. In this category, 4 cars are present at the start of the season, and we note also the AMM01 that doesn't finish the exercise. It will also be the case for the Team Kifel ASM, who run with Olivier Pla and Miguel Amaral in a Zytec 09C. Thanks to their new agreement with Toyota, the Rebellion team is back in shape with its 2 cars, number 12 driven by Nicolas Prost and Neil Jani, and car number 13 of Andrea Bellicchi and Jean-Christophe Bouillon, the most experienced team. A lot of new things are happening at Rebellion, making them one of the favourites. There's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns on the part of the Pescarolo team, which is back on the track after an absence and long financial and legal struggles. The way is now open to get back into competition. And the season that gets underway at Le Castellet will already bring quite a few answers to the possibilities of each team. In the second start of the race, it's the Rebellions and Kifel who head off into the lead. The Pescarolos far off in the starting order, but luckily, this is endurance. Little by little, the leaders of the first hour will crack or give way to the most fickle mechanical hassles. The Rebellion of Bouillon and Bellicchi loses a huge amount of time, not in refueling, but in getting the door to work properly again. It had flown open in mid-track, giving a fright to one of the drivers, but this episode also closes the door on hopes of victory. The Zytec of Kifel ASM is also in dire straits. Firstly, it's a back right tyre that's blown, causing a lot of damage to Olivier Pla's prototype. Then, it's the Rebellion number 12 that throws in its hand due to a transmission problem. It's the start of a long series of issues for Nicolas Prost and Neil Jani. But in the end, the laws of endurance are applied without pity. You have to race and keep racing. And at this game, Pescarolo are kings, even though they began from way back on the grid. And it's a shining victory for the French team, who are back in the club through the main entrance. The demonstrations of joy on the pit walls say it all, especially after what they've been through these past months and years. Pescarolo takes the race ahead of Bouillon and Bellicchi in the Rebellion, and Greaves Motorsport a third overall. It's the Rebellion number 12 that takes third place in LMP1. We didn't expect to win the first race, but when we started again, competition with the whole team, everybody already knew what to do and was already 100%. The team's so well prepared that we had the impression that nothing happened and that we didn't stop racing for one full season. That makes a big difference, even if we didn't work together for one full year. Everybody knew how to handle the situation. In the drivers' table, this first victory places Collard, Juice and Tanso at the top, above Bouillon and Bellicchi. Pescarolo leads the team's table by 1 point in front of Rebellion, a victory and a symbolic first place for Henri Pescarolo. Maybe, but it's our most beautiful victory. We were just coming out from hell. 1 year ago, there was no more team. Pescarolo Sport was dead. There was no car anymore. They were sold. No more sponsors. We lost them all. There was nothing left. And the resurrection of the team was confirmed by this first win in the first race of the 2011 championship. And we're very proud of this. A resurrection that shouldn't allow us to forget the tight battle that's set to unravel itself in the LMP1 season. And in that sense, Rebellion have not had their last say. At Spa, the petrol-driven cars of the LMS are just behind the diesels of the ILMC. Yet again, it's the Toyota Lolas of Rebellion that are among the fastest in qualifying. But Kiefel are just in the wake of car number 12. And when the start's given, the Zytek number 20 takes the advantage to get up to the pace of his main rival and to take the lead of the petrol-driven cars. Olivier Pla is even able in the first kilometres to keep the pace of the diesels that literally encircle him. But of course, this is only temporary. A few dozen minutes later, once the excitement of the start's quelled and each team finds its place, the race is dictated by strategy. We find the players of the Le Mans Series grouped together. Kiefel ahead of Rebellion and Pescarolo. The three cars are all within 2 seconds. In the Pescarolo, Christophe Tasso observes the running battle between Olivier Pla and Neil Janney. But with the strategies, the fuel stops with or without driver changes, and the mechanical failures, as for the Kiefel Zytek, that disappears in a cloud of smoke, the race, little by little, takes on its definitive form. Car number 13 of Bouillon and Beliki will rise up to the third place of the Le Mans Series cars, passing through the obstacle course of the track, behind sister car number 12 of Nicolas Prost and Neil Janney. But there's nothing for it. Once again, the inexorable march of the Team Pescarolo car, a technical and human machine that's perfectly well oiled, that runs as it should from the time the lights go out right up to the checkered flag, and that wins for the second time in the LMS this season. In the Drivers' Championship, of course, the Pescarolo boys are in the lead, but the gap isn't huge back to the Rebellion drivers. And it's the same thing for the teams that already established the silhouette of the final duel that will take place at Estoril. This time, it's in group formation that the three cars that have largely animated the LMS season present themselves at the start of the Italian round on the circuit of Imola. But once again, very quickly, the Toyota-powered prototypes play a dud hand with Lady Luck and Mark Time. And during this time, Emmanuel Collard is in full debate with a cousin at Oak Racing. Finally, however, the trend is reversed and the Rebellion sign a double-header on the podium. Car 12 behind car 13. Jean-Christophe Bouillon and Andrea Beliki take a home victory. The four Rebellion drivers all tie for points and are 3 lengths off the Pescarolo boys, who still lead the table. And this double-header allows the Rebellion team to arrive back up with Pescarolo, even though the French team still leads thanks to its win at Le Castellet. Only 2 races left to run this season, and for the moment, that's the status quo between the two teams at the head of the general classification. And the trend seems to want to confirm itself at Silverstone, where very quickly, the Rebellion of Jean-Christophe Bouillon finds itself in direct confrontation with the Pescarolo, car 12 having been slightly delayed by its off-road sortie at the start. Pescarolo versus Rebellion Act 2, and this time it's the blue prototype that takes the advantage. This time only because in the hours that follow, the virtual first place in the petrol cars will change several times. And lap after lap, Bouillon and Beliki will make life difficult for Tasso, Collard and Juice. The Rebellion crews will even take a definitive advantage over the Pescarolo, and the two will finish in this order in the lead of the Le Mans Series. Yet again, the two cars playing for the title find themselves on the podium and notch up the consequent points, but without making a veritable difference. The two cars have similar performance levels. The dexterity of the drivers and the team's technical and strategic analysis systematically put the two on an almost level pegging. Rebellion win for the second consecutive time.
Je pense qu'on a été plus performants.
We performed better in Silverstone than in Imola. In Imola, we won just because the Rebellion number 12 had a problem and stopped. But in terms of performances, Silverstone was the best race for us. We fought for the overall podium during the whole race. We lost it because of some external problems, but that was a very good race.
Mais on a fait une super course, donc voilà.
A great race as well for Pescarolo, where the team has yet again proven it knows how to be among the top runners. The drivers can indeed be proud of their achievements this season, even if for the moment still, it's very difficult to forecast a result of this duel. Only 3 points separate the drivers. Lola and Toyota already have the constructors' title in hand, but the teams are only separated by 2 tiny points. Everything hangs on one race between Pescarolo, Rebellion and the drivers of cars 16 and 13. 6 hours to decide between 2 excellent teams who have been equally dominant in 2011. And, as always, it will be played out on the details. Just a few corners into the race, and the first indications are there. Rebellion's 2-against-1 advantage is no longer there, as car 12 has again fallen victim to transmission problems. What follows is an epic in which speed on one side is countered by excellence in the pits on the other, or traffic. Strategies and luck all play their part. But it's in the pits that everything turns in favor of Pescarolo. Faster and less hampered than the Rebellion boys, who lose a huge amount of time in the pit lane. The Pescarolo team systematically wins these duels with pneumatic pistols, flooring their adversaries. One can never forget that endurance is not just a question of performance, but brings together all kinds of parameters that make it more complex than any other discipline in motorsport. Pescarolo wins, taking the driver's title in their comeback year. What a triumph! With the second place of car 13 and the third in LMP1 of car 12, Rebellion for its part takes the 2011 team's title. There's thus something for everyone at the finish line. With 50 points, only Emmanuel Collard and Julian Juice take the driver's title, as Christophe Tasso didn't run at Estoril, but he can also be considered as a champion in the 2011 Le Mans Series. Rebellion Racing become team champions with only 1 tiny point advantage over Pescarolo, a gap that underlines the incredible level of competition this season in the Le Mans Series. The championship will evolve in 2012 with the disappearance of LMP1, destined to represent the summit of endurance in the World Championship, created jointly by the FIA and the ACO. LMP2 will thus become the top category in the Le Mans Series, which will be disputed over 5 distinct races next year, with once again the Formula Le Mans and GTE. Don't miss what promises to be an exciting season, with 30 cars already registered for the first start.